So the angry mama tarantula bit the mean man on his big thumb, and he suffered intense pain and muscle cramps for 4 to 6 weeks. The end. Hello tarantula lovers, I'm Alex and you're watching Tarantula Haven. If you watched my last video, you'll know that my Psalmopoeus cambrdgei babies emerged from their egg sac completely on their own, totally taking me off guard. So I looked in there to find all these little tarantulas all around the mom inside of her enclosure. So I was really excited about it. I posted about it on my Instagram, I posted about it on Facebook. And I did get a response from a friend of mine who is also a hobbyist and has experience breeding tarantulas, and he told me that he would advise that I remove the babies right now rather than wait till later when they're second instar or beyond that. And the reason being is that as they get older, they behave more like tarantulas and they get quicker and more prone to hiding and bolting and things like that, and it would be a whole lot more difficult for me to remove them later than if I did it right now. At this point, the baby tarantulas are very slow. They tend to stay in one spot. They actually kind of congregate together, but that will change as soon as they start getting older. In fact, if I wait too long, they might even start cannibalizing each other. So I took his advice and I decided that I was going to go ahead and separate the babies from the mom. So that is the focus of this video, and this is my experience. My first order of business was to get Mama out of the enclosure, and I was kind of hoping that her easygoing nature would be apparent here, but no, she's been such a good mom that that was not the case. No sooner did I start poking around and moving some webbing around than she came out to greet me with some taps and baring her fangs. So yeah, and I guess I should have expected it, because like I said, she has been a really good mom and she was going to be very, very defensive and protecting her babies. And I really didn't have a plan of attack as far as how I was going to do this, but you know, once I poked around a little bit, I saw how she was going to react, and she kept trying to bite the tongs. So I used the ruler to try to, I guess, move in behind her and use that to push her out. But yeah, she was making it real difficult. She kept popping up and going back down as soon as I touched her with the ruler. And there you can clearly see her fangs bared, and again, I kept trying to reach in behind her with that ruler to push her out, but it's hard to believe how strong a tarantula can be. I know they're a large spider, but as far as creatures are concerned, they're actually a pretty small creature, you know, so they're not exactly that big, but they have a lot of strength. And they have a lot of clinging ability, where they can cling to the glass really well with their little claws, and of course with the paddings on their feet. So it was difficult extracting her out of there. So it was push and pull for a little while there, and this whole thing took about maybe 20 to 30 minutes for me to do this, just going back and forth and trying to figure out the best way to get her out without hurting the babies and without hurting her and upsetting her too much. So at this point right there, you can see where she clearly tries to bite the tongs. She's biting the tongs, and I was able to slip in behind her and get that ruler there. So I quickly had to grab the catch cup so that I could try to cup her and then move her a lot easier than just trying to walk her over. I'm pushing with that ruler, and she is just holding her ground, trying to push past it and get back down to her babies. So yeah, they're really strong, and I'm not pinching her legs or anything like that. I'm just putting enough pressure to hold her in place while I try to tuck in her legs, and even just getting her to let go of the glass with this paintbrush was a task. It was just difficult. Like I said, it's hard to believe how strong they are and how much clinging ability they have with those little feet. So yeah, I'm just basically going through here and individually tucking in her legs, trying to get her to let go so that she can go into the catch cup. And finally, at this point, when I finally get those two hind legs in there and tuck those in, then she finally gives up and moves on into the catch cup for me. Once she's in there, she goes back into her usual docile mode and just kind of chills out in there while I put her into the separate enclosure while I get the babies. So the method that I was going to use is I was going to put them individually into deli cups and just separate them all out individually, as you see here. But I quickly realized that they're also very clingy, and it was difficult to just get them to let go of the webbing, and that was just not going to work. So I decided I was going to change my method, and what I decided is that I was just going to pull out all these web curtains with all the little spiderlings clinging to it and go ahead and move them into a single larger deli tub. And once I started doing that, I quickly realized that I had a lot more than I thought I originally did. I'm pretty sure I have well over 100 spiderlings here. And the reason that I decided to do this instead of piecing them out individually into their deli cups is because they're already clinging together and they have a tendency to huddle together, which is why I didn't realize how many I had until they started kind of spreading out. And I figured since this is the way that they're living naturally, I was going to try to recreate that inside of the deli tub by just moving the webbing and leaving them with their webbing so that they could cling to that and huddle together on that webbing. And you know, they're not very fast moving right now. They're pretty sluggish and they're just kind of sticking together. So this way, inside of the deli tub, I could get them to mold out into their second instar, and it would probably make feeding a lot easier too, because in the wild the mother's going to kill prey and pretty much leave it for them, or they'll eat it while she's eating it and they all just kind of group together and feed on prey items that way. So when they do get into second instar, it would be much easier for me to feed a whole group of them by tossing in a larger roach or cricket and having them all kind of gang feed on it, and instead of feeding them individually pieced out like I was going to do originally. So there's one little guy left right here. And believe it or not, I did see the little guy clinging to the web over here on the right. And I went in afterward and I picked him out and put him in with his brothers and sisters. And I pretty much pulled all of the webbing out, and in fact afterward I kind of cleaned out the enclosure and just cleaned off some of the webbing that she'd put on the glass so I can see better. And there was these little guys left over here on the bottom, probably about, I think it was like 6 of them or so. And you can see here that they're very clingy, they're hard to get off the webbing, and once they get onto the brush there, it's kind of hard to get them off the brush. So you'll actually see me try to put them in, but like there, I just pulled it out and just I put it in the tub with the other ones instead of in this little deli tub. And I was going to keep these remaining ones in this little deli cup just kind of as an experiment to see how they would do as opposed to the other ones, but I changed my mind and eventually I just put them all together anyway. So I didn't keep them in the deli cup like this. So after I cleaned up her enclosure and removed all the webbing and everything, I had to put Mom back, and she was being her usual calm self, which I'm thankful for. She didn't try to bolt or anything like that. She was just chilling inside of the catch cup, which is kind of what I expected and kind of what I wanted. So it was just a matter of prodding her out of there and back into the enclosure, and she just quickly went back into her hide there. She's gonna have to start all over again with her webbing, but you know, I just needed to clean it up and make sure that there wasn't anything left inside there. And I've heard that they are that it's not uncommon for them to double clutch, so I don't know if I should expect another egg sac, but if she doesn't, that's fine. You know, I'm happy with what I've got right now. So there she is in her cork hide. Okay, so now the deli tubs. I'm sure you're probably wondering if I just kind of flopped them in there with the webbing and all on top of each other and buried them and so on. No, that was not my intention. My intention is to spread them out in 2 deli tubs and just kind of keep as much of the webbing as I can, but just spread it out so that it's not covering them or burying them or anything like that. I just want to give them space, enough surface area that they could cling to, and they'll have a tendency to want to huddle together anyway. So that was my intention, and that's what I'm doing here is I'm putting them into the other deli tub there, and kind of just splitting them half and half, half in one and half in the other, so that they have enough space for them to just kind of spread out inside there. And I wasn't too happy with the way this webbing was sitting. I felt like it was covering some of them, so I decided that I was going to remove this extra piece of webbing and just kind of brush the spiderlings into the deli tub off of it. This way there wasn't as much clutter and stuff that they could get underneath and possibly get trapped and die. And there you can see how they're all just kind of clustered together, and that's kind of what they tend to do. And with the second deli cup, I pretty much did the same thing. I just went in there and thinned out a lot of the webbing and kind of got rid of some of this excess substrate that got stuck underneath it, and just pretty much tried to spread out the webbing so that they would have surface area to climb on. And you see me putting them down onto the lid there, and you can see that they're not really scurrying around or trying to get away or anything like that. So that's exactly why I'm doing this, because at this stage they're not very mobile and they're not very quick. They're just kind of more concerned with staying together and clinging to what they know, you know, the webbing. And so it makes it a lot easier for me to move them about. I can just leave them there on the lid, and they just kind of gather around and stay there. So if they were second or third instar, this would not be the case. They would be bolting and taking off in every direction. So things would be a whole lot more difficult if they were at that stage. So this is exactly why I took that person's advice and decided to go ahead and make the move at this point. As you saw, I had to completely change my plan. I had originally intended to, put them inside of those little deli cups that I had, but it was just too slow and it was going to take too long to do that, to separate them all out individually. So I figured I could put them in the tubs. It was just easier to bring up the webbing all together with them on there, because that's what they were clinging to anyway, and just drape it in there and have them all together, because they, it's kind of better for them as far as I'm concerned, because they tend to just huddle together anyway, and this way they wouldn't have been all by themselves inside of a little deli cup. And I'll just let them molt out. When they do get into second instar and can be separated, then I'll go ahead and worry about that, but at least I'll have them confined in these two little tubs right here. So let me go ahead and show them to you so you can see what they look like and how they're arranged in here, and we'll wrap this up. So what I did is pretty much just kind of split them in half, and I put half of them into one of the tubs right here, and notice they're all still clinging to the webbing, and they're all just kind of huddled up on top of each other. And in the other one is pretty much the same deal. They're all kind of concentrated over here on this side right there, but yeah, they're pretty much doing the same thing. So it's kind of neat to watch. They're just kind of huddle around and crawl all over each other, and sound kind of makes them move. They get stirred up by sound. So if I talk too loud, then you'll see them jump. Boo! Sometimes it's delayed. Nope, they didn't do it that time. But yeah, sound will cause them to jump and move around, and it's kind of cool to watch them. But of course, they just pretty much sit there all the time. And right now they're not really eating, so it's just a matter of them darkening up. Their abdomens will darken up, and then they will molt out and turn into the, oh, there we go. And they'll be in second instar, and then I can go ahead and separate them. That's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. If you want to support this channel, I have a Redbubble store where I sell Tarantula Haven merchandise. Any of the proceeds that come from the Redbubble store will go directly to help grow and support this channel, and I'll post a link down below to that store in the description. And I always forget to mention this, but I do have an Instagram, tarantula_haven, where I post a whole lot more pictures and videos than what I do here on YouTube. So if you want to see more of that stuff, follow me there. Until next time, keep loving them tarantulas.